recording. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. For those of you not familiar with me, my name is Sonia Rawle Carter, and I am Barbados's Consul General in Canada. Now, my task this evening is a simple one, and it is to welcome each and every one of you to this evening's panel discussion entitled Cricket, Lovely Cricket, a salute to our cricketing heroes then and now. So welcome. This panel discussion is one in a series of events that we at Team Barbados in Canada have been organizing to commemorate and celebrate Barbados's national heroes. And after today, this is the penultimate event. We will close out our celebrations with an award presentation to our Bajan unsung heroes in Canada. And 11 people will be awarded on Saturday, April 30th. But tonight is about cricket, something which I have admitted with no degree of pride, mind you, to know very little about. However, before I hand over to our moderator, who will introduce our very esteemed panel and get the discussion started, permit me to give a few housekeeping notices. So I want those who have joined us to feel free to type your questions or comments in the chat, and we will have ample time for Q&A, and one of the team members will pose the questions for you. So without further delay, permit me to now hand over the proceedings to the gentleman who is by training a healthcare professional with over 40 years experience. He is a clinical mental health specialist and international clinical researcher. But more importantly, for this role, he is a cricket researcher / historian and definitely a cricket enthusiast. So I will hand over to our moderator, Barbados's Honorary Consul in Edmonton, Alberta, Mr. Rawle Carter. Thank you.
Thank you, CG. And good afternoon to everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you and a great opportunity to be part of this exciting discussion. So first I will start by introducing each of the panelists. And we have a few very esteemed panelists here. So I'm going to start first of all with the Honorable Dr. Desmond Haynes. So Desmond Leo Haynes, born 15th of January, 1956, is a former Barbadian and West Indies cricketer. His career spanned 1978 to 1994. He scored 7,487 runs in 116 test matches at an average of 42.29. His highest test score of 148 coming against England in 1980. He scored 18 test centuries and 17 one-day international centuries during his international career. He's also one of the few players to have scored a century on an OD debut. His 148 against Australia came on his debut test match in one-day international, which still remains the highest score ever made by a batsman, as well as the fastest century scored by a one-day debutant. He was rated by Trinidad and Tobago Guardian as one of the greatest of all time, while the BBC described him as one of the greatest opening partnerships in history with fellow Barbadian Gordon Greenwich, who is now Sir Gordon. The Cricket Almanac Wisdom noted his combination of timing and very evident power and named him one of the Cricketers of the Year in 1991. In June 2021, he was inducted into the ICC Cricket Hall of Fame as one of the special inductees to mark the inaugural edition of the ICC World Test Championship Final. He has also had a successful career in English county cricket, playing 95 first-class games for Middlesex, scoring 7,071 runs and an average of 49.1, with the best double century score of 255 not out against Sussex. Now let's look at his post-retirement. Since retirement as a player, he is currently lead selector for the West Indies male senior team. He has also served as chairman of selectors of the Barbados Cricket Association, President of Carrollton Cricket Club, Secretary of the West Indies Players Association, and is currently a Director of the West Indies Cricket Board. He is a former government senator and was chairman of the National Sports Council. His main relaxation is golf. A biography, Lion of Barbados, was published about him, punning on his middle name, Leo. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Dr. Desmond Haynes. Next is Mr. Jeff Brooms. Jeff Brooms has had a long and productive involvement at all levels of Barbados and West Indies cricket. He began as a player representing his alma mater, College and Prairie School, in boys under 15 and intermediate competition. He later played as a cricket master at the then St. Lucie Secondary School, where he supervised the development of a number of Barbados and West Indies players. He also had the honor of captaining the combined schools in the first division tournament. As a cricket leader, he managed the combined schools for many years, as well as the Barbados under 15, under 19, and senior national team. He also served as manager of the West Indies under 19 team on its successful tour of England. As an administrator, he served as chairman of cricket development for the Barbados Cricket Association, during which time he conceptualized and initiated both the inter-school under 13 and under 19 competitions. He was also chairman of the BCA's Benefit Committee, taking matches to New York, Florida, and Connecticut. Mr. Brooms' resume is bolstered by the fact that he served as a member, third and first vice president of the BCA, president of Barbados Women's Cricket Association, where he conceptualized and introduced the annual Iris Walker Tournament for Women. At the regional level, he was vice president of the West Indies Women's Cricket Federation. He also served as a Barbados representative to the West Indies Cricket Board and also as the West Indies Cricket Board director and member of the Integration Steering Committee that brought the women's game under the purview of the West Indies Cricket Board of Control. Next, we have Ms. Tiffany Thorpe. She played cricket for Barbados from the tender age of 9. At the age of 19, took a break to focus on her education and the basketball. During this time, she earned 2 national caps for the Barbados senior women basketball team. While attended University of the West Indies Cave campus, where she earned her bachelor's in sports science. It was here that she rekindled her love for playing the game of cricket and returned. This return saw her represent Barbados and recently the Leeward Islands. Currently, she's a student athlete on a scholarship to Kiliano College in Alberta, Canada. Next, we have Mr. Deighton Smith. Dayton Smith is a retired banker with 24 years experience in Barclays Bank and 2 years in First Caribbean International Bank. At the time of his retirement from First Caribbean International Bank, he was head of the operations network for the Caribbean, which meant that he had responsibility for back office operations, staff, security, and cash management in 15 countries. During his career, he worked in several Caribbean countries, complemented by 3 stints in England. Subsequent to his banking career, Dayton held the post of Chief Executive Officer of the Cricket Legends of Barbados and CEO of Barbados Cricket Association. He was the first Vice President of the Barbados Cricket Association, having previously served as second and third Vice President of that association. Mr. Smith's service to cricket went beyond Barbados when he served as a director of the West Indies Cricket Board. It should be noted that he was not only an administrator, but actually played for more than 40 years in Barbados, England, Canada, Grand Cayman, and the Bahamas. Next, we have Mr. Cammy Wilson. Cammy Wilson was a grassroots cricketer who displayed his batting craft both in Barbados and the United States. In Barbados, he was a stalwart at the Northern Club of Bristol, which was a dominant team in the domestic competition. In the United States, where he played for many years, representing clubs such as Somerset, Malvern, and Surrey. Cammy has fashioned himself as a student of the game of cricket that he loves with a passion. He extensively reads all things cricket to enhance his knowledge. He has been a long-standing and ardent fan of West Indies cricket. He has experienced the highs of success and the painful lows of our recent failures. Hence, his views on West Indies cricket past and now, as chronicled in Jeff Brooms' book, are very strong. And finally, but not least, we have Mr. Wayne Holder. Gregory Wayne Holder, career civil servant, presently serving at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, a cricket commentator, analyst, freelance reporter, co-host of online cricket show, Anything Cricket, Let's Talk, a cricket tragic who has been involved in the game from the time he can remember. Played the game all his life until venturing into administration, promotion, and the media. Founder and promoter of Cricket and Cropover, first community night cricket competition in Barbados, co-founder of the
Sorry, Rawle, excuse me. Rawle, you need to unmute. You are, there you go.
Sorry about that. And secretary treasurer of the captain of Ipswich Club. So please join me in welcoming the panel. So I'm going to start and get the ball rolling here with a very brief overview of cricket. Sort of prepare the wicket, so to speak, for a discussion. So cricket for us in the West Indies is more than a game, more than competitive sports. It is a social institution, a second religion. For us baby boomers, in our childhood, it was a way of life. We ate, drank, slept, and played the game anywhere and everywhere that there was a small empty piece of land. Some cricket writers have even stated that cricket is in our blood. In those good old days, there were no neighborhood gangs with guns and bullets. The weapons of mass destruction then were just bats and balls. West Indies cricket has given us many exciting highs and many painful lows. We are currently in an uncertain stage of the cycle. So the toss has been spun and the game is about to begin. So let us start with the Honorable Dr. Desmond Haynes. Let him open the batting, so to speak. So Dr. Desmond Haynes, you were a member of that West Indies team that so dominated the world stage of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. You and your partner, Gordon Greenwich, give us some outstanding opening partnerships that laid a solid foundation for number 3, 4s to build on. You give us many thrills and the opportunity to relax and enjoy the game. My question for you, without any expectations of you sharing any forbidden secrets, is this. What are 3 to 4 short-term strategies and 3 to 4 long-term strategies that can be in place that will help rebuild and restore West Indies cricket to a point where we are truly competitive and can be successful again.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's nice to be here. I always like to talk cricket, and in my position, obviously, you know, I just have to stick to the facts. I can't really divulge a lot of information regarding selection and all of that. But to answer your question with the short-term goals is that I believe that we are in some difficult times, and too many of us really expect the young cricketers to be just like how we were when we were young. I think that the opportunities now for a cricketer, he can make a lot of money from the game without even wanting to represent West Indies. So these are some difficult times for us, but I believe that we still need people who are committed, because if we all love West Indies cricket, you know, we don't want to see West Indies cricket, you know, at the bottom of the pack in world cricket all the time. We have been used to West Indies cricket winning, and I think that it's important for us to all to try to get there. But what I am very concerned about is the whole infrastructure of cricket in the West Indies and the territories. I think that the territories must look at developing, as I was talking to Deighton before we started, about having indoor facilities, and also to look at the conditions in which we are developing our young players. I think that is one of the first places that I would start, because you don't want to be looking at choosing talent. And there's a lot of talent in Barbados, but wider in the Caribbean, because, you know, I now got the opportunity to go around and see the talent that is, you know, throughout the Caribbean. But if I just focus a little bit on Barbados, I think there's a lot of talent in Barbados. And I also believe that Barbados would always produce cricketers, because our system is very much what is needed in order to develop cricketers. We've got the under 11s, we got on the 13s, we got on the 15s, we got on the 17s, on the 19 cricket, you know. So, you know, if you're a youngster going into primary school and you can play cricket, everybody in Barbados will know you, because, you know, you make 10 runs or you play the Herman Griffith competition, and then you're seen on television, you know, just before the news as well, you know. So you get a chance to see the young talent at prime time in Barbados. So I think that we would always be able to produce cricketers, and it's very important for you to do that. But then we say, well, okay, yes, Barbados has got a system in place where that is good to produce cricketers. But then you go over, you know, our way, you go to Trinidad, and they might have a lot of cricketers, but their structure is totally different. You know, where they play semi-professional league, where companies sponsor their cricket more so than what we depend here in Barbados on clubs. And then you go over to the Leeward and the Windward Islands, which is sad, because, you know, the club structure there is to me, is not what is needed in order for us to produce, you know, great. We had a lot of good cricketers out of the Leeward Islands, you know, like Sir Viv, Sir Andy, Sir Richie, Sir Ambrose. Yes, we have that. But we still want to be able to say that there's a structure in place where that these guys who are now having all different sports in which they can watch, they can get involved in, you know, there's so many distractions now. What are the programs that you're putting in place in order to continue to produce the likes of the Sir Viv and the Sir Andy and the Sir Richie and all those guys? You know, we don't have that. So I think when I mention the short-term goals, I look at it very much of the programs, but I feel that we need to have, you know, the facilities in a way that we can produce the cricketers. And I mean, I can go on, because the question you asked me is such a long question, where that to answer that I can take up the whole program. I don't want to do that. But I think it's very important for us to start looking at the infrastructure, and we must put some more pressure on the territories. I believe that the territories need to take hold of West Indies cricket. They've got to be the ones who, I believe that, you know, are fighting to get these programs in place in order to produce the cricketers, and then let the West Indies Cricket Board when they get the money, to be the people who are going to finance it. But we got to get the territories playing a bigger role in the development of cricket in the Caribbean.
Thank you, sir, for a very enlightening response. And I'm hoping that we can get things back in place so that we can get back to the pinnacle of success, which we previously enjoyed. That would be a wonderful time. So moving on next to you, Tiffany. Now, you are a young, emerging cricketer on the women's side. And I'm sure you've had the opportunity to represent Barbados and Libras in first class. I do believe that you will also be looking at representing the West Indies one day. So my question for you is in two parts. What has your experience been like in terms of your cricket scholarship? Any surprises? And how does the training here in Canada differ from the training in Barbados?
Well, first of all, thank you for thinking that I'm actually that young, but I'm closer to the end of the spectrum.
Okay.
But to answer the first part of the question, my expectations for cricket over here, it is more about development. I expected it not to be close to the standard of what I'm accustomed to back home. But at the same time, it is a learning experience. The differences in terms of training, it has to do with the weather. We have seasons over here. Well, back home, it's either rain or sunshine. So we just finished winter, which was mainly indoor training. We had gym sessions, we had fundamental stuff like throwdowns, working on bowling techniques, just working on the fine-tuning the small technical aspects of our games individually and as a team. Back home, I know the girls, they're training, well, after the COVID protocols, were what was it now? They were eased, so they got no time to practice on the field as groups and everything. Well, in Alberta, we didn't have those restrictions. So I know everyone is training hard. Even despite the differences, we're all training hard to reach that common goal to either make Commonwealth or regionals.
Okay, thank you so much indeed, Tiffany. So next we'll go on to Mr. Jeff Brooms. All cricket playing test countries are represented by a single country on a single landmass, the West Indies being the only exception. The West Indies are represented by a regional team, a collection of several individual countries with their own geopolitical format. Some countries being independent, some are republics, and others are still colonies. Cricket, however, is the glue that binds these countries together toward a single purpose, toward one goal. Mr. Brooms, you've recently written a book, The West Indies Cricket Journey and its Barbadian Influence, and congratulations on this achievement. Can you please share with us some of the salient points about cricket in general in the West Indies and the contribution of Barbados specifically?
So, Rawle, thank you very much. And I want to thank the Consul General. I want to thank Mr. Gibbs and all you guys up there for having this program and giving me the honor of being part of it. Now, I think I want to begin by thanking the president of the Barbados Cricket Association, Mr. Conde Riley, because he took me on a journey that I had never envisioned that I'd be going on. When he approached me writing this book, he wanted two things. He said he wanted me to chronicle the outstanding West Indies cricket history, but he also wanted a virtual textbook for the Evernavik Center of Excellence. Well, you know, my whole life, my whole professional life is about education. I was a school teacher for 41 years, a secondary school principal for 14 of them. And, you know, and I've been interacting with young people and I've been interacting with all developmental programs. So I was very pleased to do that. And it opened my eyes to so many things. But our West Indies cricket journey is outstanding. And the contribution of Barbados was unmatched, totally unmatched. You know, I heard Dayton make a comment, which some time ago when we had a similar program here in Barbados, that I had a significant challenge. And he's right, he's absolutely right. because although you want to pinpoint the great things Barbadians did, you do not want to be so insular as a sideline the West Indies, because the West Indies cricket journey is not only about Barbados. It's been an outstanding journey in itself, with contributions from every single territory. And we go right back to the early days, the pre-WICB days. And we had the World War I. Some things that highlighted me, that spoke up to me, I should say, is someone like George Headley, a great player from Jamaica, who was considered one of the greatest ever. And he never got the opportunity to play a single test match between ages 25 and 39. Just imagine what he could have done if he played. Those were his glory days. He was interrupted by World War and all these kind of challenges. Now, we go through, and so we had the chronicle the history, and I did a little bit more than that. Yes, we also outlined what I referenced in the book as the pantheon of Barbadian cricket heroism. And when we read that, we see some outstanding things that I really never knew before I started researching this book. And I was a very fortunate person to be married to a lady who just a couple of years ago did her doctoral thesis on the journey of West Indies women's cricket. She's a researcher, a librarian. She really helped me a lot. My wife Margaret, and without her, I don't know how I could have got all this work done. But we learned some things. So we identified Pantheon. In that Pantheon, I discovered the single school in the world that's produced the most test cricketers is right here in Barbados. There's no school in the world that's produced more test cricketers than a school here in Barbados. I can give you the name, but I want you to buy the book and discover for yourself. I also give an opportunity, like Desmond said earlier, he's a selector, the lead selector. And I remember when he was appointed to that position, I called him and I said, my friend, you're loved, but look, people are going to be tearing you down left, right, and center once you're not winning or once you start making decisions that they don't like. And in that book, we've given the opportunity to pick the top West Indies 11 and 2 reserves. I do not see anybody really happy anybody's selection. As a matter of fact, I see that as a ramshot argument. And we go on from there. As an educator, I had to do something educational, also with this every week center of excellence in mind. At the end of the book, I created a quiz game of 320 items, where you have to answer questions. And I think is a learning experience to me. Well, I remember during the test match in Barbados, I asked the president of West Indies cricket, Ricky Scare, and I get Desmond's like table with us at the time. Who was the first black man to play test cricket? He didn't know. And as a matter of fact, I have not asked a single person in Barbados that knew the answer. And I got that from the research and reading the book. So I went into a lot of things in that book. All I can say to you, the why that was important to me, he did not play for the West Indies. He did not play for England, but his father was from Barbados. His father's from Barbados. So the West Indies cricket journey, we went through all the great things. We touched on all the confusion, the conflicts. And I think that is one of the things that we have to be sure about. Make sure that we are working as a united entity. Now, we cannot have this body bickering, that body bickering. And unfortunately, even to this day, we are seeing that being played up in the public domain, where colleagues are bashing each other. And that will not do any good for West Indies cricket. We are too good as a nation. When I say the West Indies nation, we may have a collection of islands, but in totality, our population is still smaller than all the individual countries that play test cricket, any one of them. But we just work together. I think we have some good people. I think Desmond is a terrific person to be in the position he's in now. I think Ricky Scare has a significant strength to stand up to do what must be done, even if we disagree sometimes. That's what leadership is all about. You do not expect everybody to agree with you. You must understand leadership making decisions between two equally deserving but competing ideas. And you have to do what you have to do, stay the course and do it right. West Indies cricket will come back. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you very much for that enlightening response. Next, we'll go on to Cammy Wilson. Now, the former Australian captain, Ian Chappell, now turned.
I'm sorry, Rawle, sorry, let me interrupt you there for a moment. Can you skip Cammy now and go to the next question? Because Cammy doesn't seem to be able to stay on his mic. So just go ahead to the next person, please. You're muted, Rawle.
Deighton Smith. Cricket is now part of the big money experience, especially in the 20-over format of the game. Some of our best emerging cricketing prospects, especially batters, are quickly snapped up at auctions for the 20-over game. These prospects often have no test match experience. The ability to develop into test cricketers is therefore blunted. You will never hone your cricketing skills by practicing swiping. Good batting skills are developed by spending long hours batting at the crease. Good shot selection, the ability to adapt to varying conditions. These skills are only accomplished in test cricket and first-class matches. So my question for you, sir, what do you think can be done to keep these emerging prospects at home so that we can have quality batters again to help us select a competitive, consistent team to give us some success of winning?
Thank you very much for that question. Let me start by putting this in some context first. The England cricket team has just had a second post-mortem after not doing well. And one of the things that they have recognized, by the way, England had been doing very well in white ball cricket, and they're not doing well in test cricket. The reason for that is a lot of the other teams are now beginning to experience the problem that we have in the Caribbean. Previously, a lot of these players prioritized playing test cricket for their country. But more and more now, we have top class cricketers going towards T20. And the reason is simple. If you were working for a company that paid you $100,000 a year, and another company offered you $500,000 a year, you'll be very tempted to move. That is the battle that all test teams are facing now. And more we are seeing even the very successful test teams losing players. South Africa just played a series without a number of the top test players, simply because the lure of the money in the T20 game is very great. A couple of our players who haven't even played test cricket were just bought in the Indian Premier League for over $1 million. And so you have to be very realistic. If you have players who have a very short career that ends around about age 35, age 37, if you're lucky, you have to determine how you are going to provide for you and your family. That is the dilemma we all face. And I think there are two things that we have to start thinking in terms of now. One is this: red ball cricketers like Jason Holder, for instance, you have to accept very simply that they will have less time to devote to the red ball game than they used to. That is just a fact of life. Right now, Jason Holder is playing the IPL, so he cannot be working on his red ball game. That is simply the nature of things as they are. And it would be wrong to deny him the very lucrative opportunity that the IPL presents to young people like himself. So we have to accept that to begin with. And what we have to do is to change our preparation methods and our training methods to work in the time we are given. And here is where what Dr. Haynes mentioned a while ago is really important. In the Caribbean, we've always been blessed with 24 hours of sunshine. Well, not 24 hours, 12 hours of sunshine every day. And we've taken it for granted. But the reality is, with people pursuing careers and doing other things, the time available to you during the day is not always ideal for training. But when you have indoor facilities, which we lack across the Caribbean, and which we must now have, a lot of these players are able to devote time at night to working on their game in an indoor setting. I'm disappointed that our leaders in not only at the BCB level, but at the territorial level have not yet recognized the importance of this. I played for a team that used to play at Kensington Oval in Barbados. And they were displaced from there. And after 2 years, they went to play at UE before they moved to where the ground they are at now. During the 2 years they were at UE, they had indoor facilities available to them. Prior to that, they had not won a cup in Barbados for 58 years. And in the 2 years that we were at UE, we won 2 cups. You cannot get a more striking example of how you can progress as a player once you're able to put in the amount of time that you're able to put in at night in indoor facilities. So I think we have to overall change our approach to training and some of the facilities we have available to make sure that when we have our red ball cricketers available, that the training is ideal, is more focused, it is more intense, because the window is shorter in terms of preparing for the red ball game. But I think we also have to make it clear to our red ball or white ball cricketers, the point you made earlier, that if they work on their overall game, they become better white ball cricketers. As an example, there was a time when Gerard Coley, who is acknowledged as one of the best players in the world, he was averaging 52 in T20 cricket. And I've never seen Gerard Coley swipe at a ball in my life. The reality is he had such a command of his overall game and can score all around the wicket that he can score quickly in T20 cricket. Kumar Sangakkara was a magnificent cricketer in all 3 formats of the game. Scored very quickly in T20 cricket because he mastered the art of batting. And if we can make it clear to our white ball cricketers that mastering the art of batting, even when the ball is swinging around, which it doesn't do much in white ball cricket, then when you come to white ball cricket, you use those skills in that arena. So it's about changing the mindset of some of our young cricketers to make them understand that they will benefit by playing red ball cricket, that they will benefit by preparing themselves in a red ball environment so that they acquire all of the skills of batting. We watched Dr. Haynes and we watched Sir Gordon Greenwich in Test cricket. And you knew before they ever played one-day cricket that they would be good at it simply because they had an array of strokes all around the wicket. They had the ability to move their feet and create things, as did Sir Vivian. So I think the 2 things I would say is change the mindset of the youngsters so they understand that if you learn to bat first, you'll be a good white ball cricketer afterwards. And 2, change our training methods and our facilities so that we can get more focused training in a shorter period of time.
Thank you very much for such an enlightening perspective. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next we'll move on to Mr. Wayne Holder. So, where have all the fast bowlers gone? During the years of our cricket dominance, we had a surplus of great fast bowlers back in the 80s and 90s, to the point that we could have fielded 2 teams of fast bowlers. Today we struggle to produce real fast bowlers and quality fast bowlers. The pendulum has swung from teams being fearful at the prospect of facing our fast bowlers to some teams looking forward to playing us because they believe that big scores could be possible. So my question, sir, without great fast bowlers, you're never going to win matches. Our winning teams were at their best with great fast bowlers. Today, the cupboard is rather empty. What do you think can be done for us to have a pool of genuine fast bowlers and quality fast bowlers again?
Well, first of all, let me say good evening and a special thanks to whomever it was who decided that I was worthy to be part of this esteemed panel. I'd also like to say a special shout out to my colleagues from the Overseas Diplomatic Corps. I see Mr. David Gibbs in particular, with whom I served at the ministry before he was transferred overseas. You started out by asking a question: where have all the great fast bowlers gone? I can speak for here in Barbados. The football fields, the basketball courts, the volleyball courts, the blocks, and of course, wherever across the society. The fact of the matter is that cricket, as far as I'm aware, enjoyed a privileged position in Barbados, certainly during my time as a youth growing up, where the best athletes, in the majority of cases, the best athletes pursued cricket. And hence, we were able to produce that outstanding era of West Indian cricket, whether it be fast bowling, batsmanship, the athleticism that went with those great teams. I mean, fielding is an integral part and a very important part of any great cricket unit. So that era of dominance by cricket and the prevalence of the best athletes playing cricket and participating in cricket has gone. I recall once traveling a few years back, going to one of our communities in Wharton in Christchurch to watch a cricket game. And the game was going on the field. And I looked on the basketball court. I saw a number of tall, well-built, athletic-looking young men bouncing the ball around on the basketball court, and nobody on the cricket field was bowling fast. So I think that wraps up that aspect in a nutshell. The other thing you talk about, encouraging bowlers to bowl fast. I think that the preparation of pitches and again, I'm going to speak of Barbados, and I suspect that the same prevails across the Caribbean. We have not been preparing pitches that have encouraged people to want to bowl fast. You know, again, I came up in an era when pitches were uncovered, and we came across a variety of different surfaces to be played upon. And there were those days that the bowlers would hold sway. I mean, Dr. Haynes would tell you, Dayton would tell you, Jeff would tell you, you know, there were days when the bowlers dominated, you know, and there were also the days when the weather was good and the pitch was well rolled out that the batsmen would hold sway. But generally, I find that people have not been encouraged to try to bowl fast on a number of the surfaces that I have witnessed. Some mention the covering of pitches at the local level, which in itself is a very good thing. I think covering of pitches is a very good thing, and it's something that we need to encourage. But I don't think that we really got the gist of it and the science of covering pitches. What I have witnessed in a number of cases here in Barbados, again, is that we put down canvas on the ground to prevent the rain from wetting the pitch. And we keep this canvas on as long as it is necessary, sometimes even longer than necessary. What that proceeds to do is to kill the life out of the surface. The grass is killed immediately. And what used to be a lively, vibrant, living organism of a cricket pitch is now become a stretch of dead mud, just flat dead mud. The ball hardly wants to bounce. There's no pace coming off the track. That is nothing to encourage young cricketers to want to bowl fast, because I mean, it is an exercise in futility in a number of the cases. So I think that we need to get the science of pitch preparation right. And it is no longer a matter of getting a hose, sprinkling a pitch, throwing some grass on it and rolling it. I think the science of pitch preparation has to be seen for the importance that it holds, and the need to have trained people, I mean, and to implement a scientific approach towards pitch preparation. Let's look at the Indians. We, again, of my vintage would have come along, and we would have known the Indians for being the masters of spin. India produced a number of great spinners. You go to India, and India would walk all over the rest of the world when they get them in their conditions with their spinners. When they came out of India, there were sitting ducks. So much so then that even their batsmen cowered at the sight of real pace. And Dr. Haynes would tell us, could remember an Indian team actually surrendering a match because the captain claimed that he feared for the life of his players. Here we have today, the Indians have adopted a completely different approach. They have now gone into the era of preparing pitches because they realized that they could not compete outside of India without quality fast bowlers. To do that, they started on a campaign. It started with an academy. I remember Dennis Lilly being asked to come to India to start an academy for fast bowlers. Then they also realized then that the surfaces had to be adaptable to fast bowling. They started to get into exactly what I was talking about, the science of pitch preparation. And today, what do we have? I saw a young man today bowling in the IPL, a young man called Umran Malik. The man is hitting speeds of 155 miles per hour and hitting people's stumps before they can bring the bat down. This is an Indian. This is a young Indian guy, probably only in his early 20s. And they have been able to produce a plethora of young, fast bowlers, which has made them into one of the dominant teams on the world scene in whatever format of cricket is concerned. So here we go. To sum it up in the 2 points that I'll be making, we have to encourage those better athletes, more natural athletes, especially the 6-footers and those. I mean, not necessarily that every fast bowler is a 6-footer. I mean, Fidel Edwards is a perfect example, but those athletes, and also we have to deal with that matter of pitch preparation. I'll stop it there for now. Thank you.
Well, thank you indeed for a very enlightened and scientific approach to the whole process of wicket preparation and our need to find those athletic looking young men and get them back into cricket again. The temptation of multiple sports are going to be there, so we have to find a way to reintroduce them back to the game that has made us the force around the world, cricket, special cricket. CG, is Mr. Cammy Wilson available now?
I think he may be, but my thing is, I know Dr. Haynes has to leave us within a few minutes.
Okay,
So if there are any questions, I've asked people to type them in the chat. If you have any questions specific to Dr. Haynes, to Dr. Desmond Haynes, I think that anybody who wants to type their question in would need to get it in as soon as possible, because I think Dr. Haynes has probably about another 10 minutes with us. So if there are any questions specific to him, please type them in the chat so that he can respond to those before he leaves us. But in the meantime, yes, I think Cammy is available with us now. And Cammy, if you are, can you unmute so that we say something so we know that you're there and we can go on to you? Not hearing Cammy right now, so continue, Rawle.
Okay, if there are no questions specifically for Dr. Haynes, I have one, a very short question. I know, Dr. Haynes, that during your illustrious career, there will be very many high points and great memories that you would have had. Is it possible to share just 3 of those favorite memories with us as a West Indian cricketer?
Yeah, well, I might sound a little big-headed, but I say it because it is the truth. I always knew I was going to play cricket for West Indies. And when I say it, people say, oh, there you go again. Because from the district in which I was born, I was encouraged to play cricket. The guys recognized that I had some talent, and they really, kept me on the straight and narrow. So I always say from my first appearance to West Indies was always something special, because it was a dream come true, even though, yes, I knew that I was going to play at some stage. I had a journey in under 15 cricket that really had me a little concerned, whereas I went to trials to Barbados on the 15 for about 4 years or 5 years, and I made the team the last year. So it was good that, I got into the West Indies team before a lot of the guys who played before me on the 19 cricket. So that was good. And also playing cricket at, my first test appearance at Lord's, that was special as well. And even though when you were introducing me, you said I made 148, but it was 184. And I don't play anymore, so I need every run that I've made, so I don't want you to take any runs away from me.
My apologies.
That was special. And the reason why it was special is that the lady who looked after me, because for those who really don't know this, but my mother had me when she was 16 years old. And my grandmother took me away from my mother, I'm sorry, and decided that she looked after me. And I think that everything that I have achieved, I owe it to her as well, because, I was a grandmother boy that she used to spoil me, always on my side, and she was very helpful. And what was so interesting about my 184 at Lord's is that I was 92 not out on the second day. And then I went on the third day and I made another 92, which gave me 184, I got out. And my grandmother died at 92 years. So 92, was special for me, and that game at Lord's, and she passed away after that. And then the 100 and I can't remember how much it was, the 100 or that in Sydney, whereas that a lot of people thought that, I wasn't very good against spin, and it was one of my weaknesses, and they figured, well, he's not going to do well, if the wicket is turning. And I made 100 against Australia on a track that was turning in Sydney. And every bad ball, I hit it for 4, and it was enlightening to me. It was also a booster. I then tell myself, well, look, I can play spin, because I never used to really score off it as freely as I would like, but I was always determined that it's not going to get me out. So those 3 occasions were very special to me. But I want to say something, because I know I don't have a lot of time here.
Actually,
And
Dr. Haynes, if you don't mind, the people have just started typing lots of questions in this chat for you.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. Then, well, then I wouldn't give my wrap-up statement. Then I will wait.
All right. Well,
and
these are
answer
the
these
questions.
yeah.
These are the questions that are coming in. Carlos asks, whereas our players developing or otherwise have to earn a working wage, how do we get our top players to choose our national team first?
I think that is going to be very difficult, because, and I mean, Dayton alluded to it. I mean, you're working for a company, you get $100,000 a year, and you get an offer to work for $500,000. You're obviously you're gonna go for the $500,000. So I'm not too sure if we will ever be able to compete with the IPL salaries, but the West Indies, we have good contracts for the players, and it is very difficult though to stop those players from going to make a living, and I personally wouldn't like to stop no one from going to make money, but I still think that when you look at the calendar, for the year, I still think that, the players could still go and play the various franchises around the world, but they could at least make some sort of commitment to West Indies cricket, when they're not engaged in those big offers, to play for the various franchises, because it makes life very difficult when you're perceived to be only want to represent West Indies when it suits you. So I think that when you look at the calendar of events in a year, I still think there's scope for the guys to play for West Indies, commit to West Indies, because IPL, I mean, there's no cricket playing around the world. There's a window for IPL, so all players can go and work and play for IPL. But it is very difficult that if you're contracted to West Indies and you've got an opportunity to go and play IPL, which is a window, and then you're asking for NOC, which is a no objection clause contract, whereas that you want to go and play in the hundreds, and then you want to go and play the big bash, and if these franchise or if these leagues are clashing with West Indies, it's very difficult, for you to do that. So I think that, for the smart ones, I think the ones they could choose to play the IPL and then look at the West Indies calendar and be committed to West Indies cricket.
Okay, thank you so much, Carlos. I hope that helped you out. Actually, one of your panelists, one of your fellow panelists has a question for you. Tiffany's asking, she said that you spoke about the long term of men's cricket, but what are your thoughts on women's cricket? You spoke about the short to long term goals for men's cricket. What are your thoughts on it?
I think women's cricket in the Caribbean, I think it needs some serious look at, because I think that what we have to do is that I believe in fast tracking players, and I think that if you've got ladies who got potential, I think if they're playing among themselves, I don't think that they're going to develop as quickly as one would like. And the other thing too is that we don't have a lot of women that are natural cricketers. When I say natural cricketers that came up playing cricket, like Matthews used to play with her brother and her father was involved. Then you had Deandra, you had Stephanie Taylor, you've got them. But a lot of the women cricketers, they are coached to be a cricketer, coached into what they, in how they play, whereas that it is very difficult. But if they're playing a lot of competition and they're playing cricket more often, then you will start seeing the natural flair coming out from these women. So I think what we need to do is address the ladies cricket in the Caribbean and try to see how best that you can get competitions for them. And the ones that are doing well, I think we need to fast track them, even if we have to include them in the men's team. But I think that, they need a serious PR for ladies cricket. And I think that we need to address ladies cricket, because people have been telling me that, the women are making West Indian proud in the effort in which they, perform in the field, which I was very pleased to see the way how they perform in Australia. I mean, I saw some fight, and I think that even when you look at what happened in the series here against England, I just wonder if the men just watching the women, playing with such fight and determination, if that didn't really, help them to perform like how they perform against England. So, the last time West Indies won the World Cup, the women done well, under Vasper Drakes and those guys, they done very well. But since then, we did not really address ladies cricket as we should.
Okay, thank you. And I have two very quick questions. One, what has your first few months as a lead selector been like? What has your first few months as a lead selector been like? Any surprises?
It's like if you're dealing with a dog, rough. No, on a serious note, it was pretty difficult for us. So we had to be picking teams that, not getting the opportunity to see a lot of guys playing. And the break obviously didn't help, because we would have loved to see when England was playing here that cricket was still playing in the territories, so that, if there was a situation where one of the players lose their form, that at least we can select people who are playing cricket and are doing well. And but we were fortunate, because what happened is that, our players, we didn't have a lot of chopping and changing in our team. And I know it was hard on the fast bowlers and playing back-to-back test matches, but along with my co-selectors and the coach, we were very confident that, we are always going to try to put the best team out there. And if the guys are fit enough to do the job, we are going to pick a team that because we are looking for success. I think a lot of people in the Caribbean want some success, in West Indies cricket. A lot of people live and say that they can't remember West Indies winning, and so our job was to make sure that we we pick people who we feel can do the job for them. And as I said very early, that it doesn't matter, what competition you're playing, if you're playing the white ball or red ball or T20 or whatever the case may be. Our job is to pick the best players that can do the job for us and don't care whatever format that we are playing. I think Deighton made a very interesting point. And he said that he talked about Coley, he talked about the other guy from Sri Lanka and so forth. But I've always had the feeling that if you are, and I'm dealing with batting now because that's what I used to do. I think that if you can bat in the longer version, I think that the shorter version will come easy. Especially if you're batting early in innings. So long as you understand the rudiments about batting, if you understand what it's like to bat, you don't really have to, because when you're batting in the first 3 or 4 up front in a T20 game, there's no need to swipe. You can play the same cover drive, but you can play, and just raise the ball a little bit and hit it over the top. There's a lot of things that you can do that is still cricket shots that you don't really have to swipe. So just getting in the habit of playing the longer version of the game and getting your technique right and, looking at, making sure that you understand what it's like to bat and know about batting. I think playing the longer version of the game can help you with your T20 format. And the 50 over is quite similar because, as you know, we don't really, our reputation is that we struggle to bat 300 balls. And I think that you have to focus on batting and building partnerships and rotating the strike, in the 50 over game. So again, that is all the rudiments that are needed for Test cricket. So, why we have to look at people who can play those roles for us. And if they're from the Test team, well, then, we will have to consider them as well. So we're not going to be pinpointing on no 50 over cricketer or no T20 cricketer or no Test cricketer. What we want to do is, and I think the West Indies Cricket Board is headed in this direction, where they're giving contracts to a cricketer. So when they give you a contract for a year, it means that if they see that you can play T20, they will pick you in the T20. If they think that you can play the 50 over version and you're good enough to play the role that we want you to play, you will play. And then if you are good enough to play Test cricket, you'll play Test cricket as well. So I think that those are the things that I find very, very important. And I like the direction in which we're going, but it has been rough because we didn't get the opportunity to see a lot of cricket. And then we had to make some very, very serious decisions. And we had to make some decisions regarding vice captain. We had to make a decision on the 50 over game team to go to India. Then we had to select the T20 team here in the Caribbean. And, it was fortunate for us that, I remained current. And even though I wasn't involved in the West Indies setup, I was still watching cricket, still keeping my ears and nose to the ground and understanding what is going on. And I believe that really eased the tension a little bit. But I really would have loved to see a lot more cricket because, as a lead selector, what you do is that you listen to people and but in the end, you still want to see for yourself. You still want to see the character of the player because it is not only your ability to play, but it is, what type of, the guts that you've got, the commitment that you're shown into in the team, and and the way how you play, if you're a team person or not, all of these things are things that we look for. So it is not just going in and asking the analyst to give you the average of this body or give you how many runs they made. You still want to see them play and you want to see how they adapt to situations. How they play various types of bowling. So these are all the things that, selectors want to see. And it was a bit unfortunate that we didn't get the opportunity to see a lot more cricket.
Thank you. And I just have one last question in the chat. And somebody's asking, Carlos is asking, Dr. Haynes, do our current players have the same pride as players of yesteryear?
I would prefer not to answer that, but I believe that the players, they want to do well. I don't see nobody playing cricket and don't want to perform and don't want to be successful. And if you're successful as a cricketer, then it means that your stakes can go a lot higher. You then becomes you're worth a lot more, you know, when it comes to the franchises and so forth around the world. So I would believe that, you know, these guys really want to do well. But, you know, we were different in a sense, whereas that, you know, we were, you know, very determined that a bunch of Black people playing cricket around the world, we wanted to be the best that we can be. We wanted to beat the world, you know, and we were very determined that is what we want to, that's what we wanted to do. We had a lot of guys that were just determined to be the best. We wanted to be the best cricketers that the world have seen.
Thank you very much. I think that is it for the questions for you specifically, Dr. Haynes. There's another one I see here, but I think others can answer it as well because there are 3 names to it. So, and I have a number of questions in the chat for Wayne. There are a couple questions for you, but Dr. Haynes, I think you can probably have your wrap up. No, I'm sorry, Chair, Moderator, if you will allow me, Dr. Haynes, to have your wrap up now, I guess, if you are heading out.
Yeah, I want to wrap up by saying that, again, thanks very much for inviting me to this program. As you all know, that I am not one of those guys now that, you know, loves the media, because I don't want to be seen on the media all the time, because if you get a little bit of success and you're seen in the media all the time, people can say, well, look, you know, when things are not going well, you were, you know, gloating around, taking all the glory when you win one series, and now. So I tend to, you know, just stay, keep a low profile and do what I think is right for West Indies cricket and to act in fairness. But I am a little concerned with the situation that we've got now in the world, in the calendar of world cricket, whereas that years ago when we were playing, we used to go to Australia for 6 months. And we used to play all the territories, the state teams, and you know, we would spend 2 weeks in Sydney, and then we go to Melbourne, and you know, and I don't think the players now are going to get that luxury. And the reason why it's not going to happen is because the way how the game has evolved. Now, you've got a situation where Australia playing against England, the last series, Australia had 1 practice game before the first test match. Now, all of us know the relationship between Australia and England. Now, why I'm worried that if the Australians are going to say to England, you know, we want to have a test series, you know, like the Ashes, and you're only playing 1 practice game, and then you're in the test matches, and then it's back-to-back test matches and so forth, you know, what would they say to West Indies? We might not get any warm-up games at all, you know, and that is what is worrying me, because I find now that, you know, we look at the IPL, we had to play back-to-back test matches here so that the players will be available for IPL, you know. So what is going to happen now when we go to, you know, our tours now? So the players are not going to get these warm-up games. And getting back to why I think that indoor facilities are so important is that we might just have to do what pilots do when they are not flying for a while, use a simulator, so that we can then start talking about, you're going up to England, let us get you the indoor nets, let us turn on the simulator so that you'll get an opportunity to see the ball swinging, what it's like to play at Lord's, you know, the atmosphere at Headingley, or the atmosphere at Leeds, or wherever, you know, or Manchester, wherever we're playing, and to give those guys the opportunity to be able to understand what is going to happen when they go on tour. Because you're not getting these warm-up games now like you used to get before. So it's going to be very difficult for all players. So again, that is why it's so important for our guys to focus on the technique, focus on the cricket, try to get, you know, a better technique and try to be as good as they can be, so that when they go to these places, they will be able to adapt a lot quicker. And I'm only saying this because it's what happened to us. I think the reason why we were so good as a test nation is that we used to adapt very quickly. Nobody understand that when we went to Australia, right, to play white ball cricket and night cricket, we have never played night ball cricket in the Caribbean. And we went to Australia to be involved in night cricket, day-night games, when we have never experienced it. And what we did, we adapt, and we beat them at night, we beat them in the day, whenever it's possible. These young players now are not going to get that luxury. So it's very important for us to focus a little bit on getting some indoor facilities and getting these guys prepared better for when they go on tour, so that they will be able to adapt to any conditions that they will get there while playing cricket for West Indies. And again, I want to thank you. When it comes to talking cricket, I love talking cricket. I can talk for the whole night. There's so many things that come to mind when I'm talking about the preparation and what we should do in order to get our cricket, and to be the man. I'm not too sure if we'll get back to number one, but 2 or 3, I'll be happy. Number 2 or number 3 in world cricket again. I think that would be good for a lot of our supporters. And in conclusion, I think that even though we were not doing particularly well in the last couple of years, or we haven't been doing well, when you look at the followers, people who follow West Indies cricket, it's a huge follow. We got we got people over India tell us, well, India is our team, but if we had to pick a team and we were not supporting India, it would be West Indies. You go to Australia to say the same thing. We go to England to say the same thing. So we've got a lot of followers, even though we were not really setting the world on fire. But, a lot of people like the way we play. They like our attitude towards the game. They like our, the way how we free spiriting people and so forth. So a lot of people want us to come back, to get back at the top. But I'm saying that even though a lot of people want us to get back to the top, the powers that there is, right? If they want West Indies to be strong again, they must share the pie a lot better than how the pie has been shared. We cannot give India all of that money, and Australia and England. The West Indies Cricket Board must get more money from ICC in order to assist with their cricket programs. That is the only way that you are going to get us back up at the top. You say it all the time. You hear people say, oh yes, we would love to see West Indies strong again. But, if you want that, speak with your pocket. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Haynes, for gracing us with your presence today. And thank you for the contribution of your stellar career as a player that has given us so much joy over the years, and you're being part of one of the most successful teams the cricket world has ever seen. Thank you so much indeed.
It was my pleasure.
Mr. Moderator, sir, there are a number of questions in the chat. If you would permit me to read them, may I go ahead and read the questions? There's one specific to—
Absolutely.
Yes?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Yes.
to Wayne Holder. Richard Clarke was very instrumental in the resurgence of women's cricket in Barbados. Suddenly, he was replaced in preference of former national players. Our team became, sorry, this is the question is stopped here. And, he was replaced in preference of former national men players, and in my opinion, became stagnated. He is one of the greatest motivators I know. Do you think that Barbados and Windies women could benefit from his input? You're muted, Wayne.
Thank you. Without doubt, I am very, very disappointed in the treatment meted out to Richard Clarke, who is a man, when you talk about loyalty, commitment, and that desire to serve. I mean, you talk about a man called Richard Clarke who goes who would go that extra mile to make to help all concerned. And to deal with the question specifically, though, as I said, I am very, very disappointed. It is interesting. Huh? There is a women's cricket team set up by the Barbados Cricket Association that participates in the domestic second division competition, exclusively a women's team. This team is essentially the national women's team of Barbados. They don't go by that name, they go by the name Iris Walker Pioneers. Iris Walker was one of the outstanding former, she's now deceased, former cricketers, female cricketers in Barbados. Richard Clark has been given the responsibility of coaching this team. Now, this is the Barbados national team playing under the name of Iris Walker Pioneers, playing in the local competition. Here is that you pick you change the same persons, the same people involved, and you call it Barbados national team, and you get on a plane, and all of a sudden Richard Clark is not good enough to coach this team anymore. You have to bring in former West Indies players and people with a name to be coaches and managers of this particular team. With all due respect to Dr. Haynes, there's this thinking in Barbados that certain positions are for certain people, and if you have not played cricket at the highest level and you didn't make your name, there's certain positions that you are not worthy of, and I take exception to that very much. So to answer Carlos's question, without doubt, Richard Clark should have been part of the management of that Barbados team going to the Commonwealth Games. And yes, there is a part and a place for him in any cricket, whether it be women. He's also very strong among the youth. I think if Carlos is who I think he is, he knows very well Richard's contribution. Before I hand over though, Mr. Chair, I would hope to ask a question of Tiffany, who has been involved with Richard and has been involved with women's cricket in Barbados. But I'm not going to go down the line of the Richard Clark issue. I'm going to ask what I think is a pertinent question, Tiffany, please. There is this perceived stigma attached to women's cricket in Barbados. I say perceived because I can't say for sure that it is real. You have been involved. First of all, I would ask you if you believe that it is so, and if it is so, what can be done to change it? Because it is seen as a deterrent to more women getting involved in cricket.
I don't think it's the stigma. If I think what you're saying is what it is, I think that in the senior team, we're all adults, and as adults, we can communicate our feelings, and it's just a basis of communication. For me, everyone is respectful. Players, coaches, managers, everybody is respectful. So the stigma may be more so in the public, but when you come into the program, there is no stigma. Everyone just comes, does their training, try to better their game, do what they have to do, and that's it. And on the aspect of Richard Clark, yes, I came out under Richard Clark. Despite him not being the head coach, Mr. Clark is always available to any female player, any male player. He is always willing to help. He never turns away a person. It doesn't matter who you could be on a different team. It does not matter. He's always willing to share his expertise to help you better your game. I don't get into the politics of it, but I know he truly loves the game. He loves to see people be successful, and yeah, that's it.
If I may add something, Mr. Moderator.
Sure, please do.
Now, my involvement in women's cricket through my entire time, Richard was always there. He and his partner, Mr. Campbell, worked very closely with me. I could not get better support from anybody else. And when I heard, and I must mirror what Wayne said, because when I heard the announcement of the officials going to the Commonwealth game, I was flabbergasted. I was at cricket this past weekend. I watched some of the Barbados cricket over at Blenheim, where two teams played, and then I went to St. Lucie, where my club Maple played down there. And that conversation took place at both of those grounds. People could not believe that Richard Clark was not going with the Commonwealth Games. As indeed, I'd be very bold. I was sitting right next to one of the former cricketers who's going in place and not Richard. And I made my position very, very clear when you my views on it. Because Richard, I do not believe they should give so much. You should give so much. He did not, I don't think Richard was doing it because of what he anticipated he would get. Richard was doing it out of a genuine love. And I should not even use the word was doing. Richard is still doing it out of a genuine love for cricket. Every female cricketer, when I was president of Barbados Women's Cricket Association, everyone held Richard in very high esteem. I remember that, to my mind, I know she's out of cricket now because of injury, but Richard Clark effectively built Shaquana Quinton, the Quinton twins. And I'm disappointed Richard is not getting what I consider his fair due. But I don't know the politics of it. I don't know what led the discussion that eventually ended that decision. But it disappoints me. Even if you want to carry the former Test cricketers, you had to find a way to include Richard, even if he's an assistant coach or something. You had to find a way, because I think on the face of it, he is the one who will get more out of the players because they relate to him. They understand his coaching techniques. They understand, and he understands them. Now they have to get all accustomed to somebody new, and this is exactly a prescription for failure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much for such a enlightening perspective. I can see there's obviously a lot of disappointment concerning the omission of what everybody sees as a very excellent coach who doesn't seem to be getting the fair share for participation into the team that could help bring out the best performance. So we are always so accustomed to disappointments with certain types of selections, and this seems to be just another one which is very burdensome for a lot of people to bear. CG, you have a next question, please?
Yes, there is a question that I am going to pose to Jeff Brooms first, and then Dayton, and then Wayne and Tiffany. I want all of you to answer. It was a question posed in the chat, and Mr. Gibbs is asking, who are the three main prospects to replace Pollard as captain? And I'm going to start with Jeff, then I'm going to Dayton, then Wayne, and then Tiffany.
Well, interesting. Well, I think we're not going to go too far because right now Nicholas Puran is a vice captain of the T20 team. I think it would be unusual to bypass him. I think for the 50 over ODI team, he has not been in the test set recently, but he was last vice captain under Pollard, Shea Hope. And I still think he's a class player, one of the better players in the Caribbean. And I would like very much to believe that he will be the next person that 50 over setup. And I know the third who could be a third prospect, because I'm not seeing a lot of other players around because they're not going to go back for Jason Holder, which is unfortunate. But it would make them look kind of silly. But and we cannot go too far away from the T20 because he's a former leader. You can see he's loaded with cricketing talent. He led the West Indies junior team, but something seems to be problematic in terms of fitness. I don't know if it's a disciplinary problem with him, but Shimron Hetmeyer is not one that should be counted out over the next few years. That's my take on it.
Dayton.
Yes, thank you. The T20 situation is a simple one. Last year, in preparation for the World Cup, Puran actually captained some games. I remember specifically against Australia and a couple of games after that. And it was notable that actually, I think almost every game that he took over, we won. He was certainly good tactically on the field in those games. The players seemed to respond very well to him. And so in relation to the T20 team, I don't think you can go much beyond him. I'm not even going to suggest anyone else beside him. I think he did a good job when he was sort of auditioned for the job, and he has been the vice captain. So I would say go with him. He's also, by the way, one of the people most likely to be able to maintain his play and walk into the team, and this is always important for a captain. However, I will take the view. We have this idea of a white ball captain, meaning that the captain will captain in both T20 and 50 overs. But those two games are actually quite different, even though people seem not to realize it. And I would not propose making him captain of the 50-over game, primarily because he's a very young player now making his way in national cricket. We gave Jason Holder the burden of captaining in 3 different formats, and we saw that was quite a heavy burden to carry. And my view would be to let Pooran settle in as captain of the T20 team and concentrate on that version of the game as a young player and as a new captain, and to propose a different captain for the 50 over. Now, in the 50 over game, I depart a little bit from my friend Jeff. I don't think that we should automatically rule Jason Holder simply because he had the job before and it was taken away from him. I still think Jason Holder has good leadership qualities. I think he's an excellent player, and he is one of the players that will automatically walk into our 50 over team. So I think he has to be considered as the captain for the 50 over game. Along with him, the Shea Hope is a young man with a very intelligent head on his shoulders. The difficulty with proposing Shea as a captain now is that he has been struggling a little bit with his own game recently. He at one point was certainly our most consistent performer in 50 over, but in recent times seems to have a little confidence problem, and I would not give him the captaincy now because I think he should be allowed to regain his confidence. I have a personal liking for Shea Hope. I would really like to see him get back on top of his game, and he should probably focus on that right now. In terms of 50 over cricket, we don't have a lot of other options to turn to. And so I would probably go with Jason Holder at this point.
Thank you, Wayne. What is your take on this question?
Well, as far as the T20 team is concerned, I like Dayton. I believe that Nicholas Pooran is a shoo-in. I think there's no competition as far as the captaincy of the T20 side is concerned. The question was very specific, and the request from David was for 3 main prospects. And obviously, Nicholas Pooran, again, as far as the ODI team is concerned, Nicholas Pooran would be one of those contenders in my estimation. Again, if I sound as if I'm echoing Dayton, Jason Holder, even if it was just for on a short-term basis, you know, maybe for the next engagement, I think, which will be in Netherlands within a month or so, and it may be just for a short-term, like I said, on a short-term basis, Jason Holder would come into my equation. And if I were to choose a left field, make a left field choice, Shimron Hetmeyer, whom I believe we've not been getting the true value of this young man in West Indies cricket, and both himself and the authorities are to blame for that, but that's another question. So my 3, Pooran, Holder, Hetmeyer.
Thank you, Wayne. Tiffany, what are your 3?
Well, I don't really have 3 for the T20, as everyone's been saying. It would be Pooran for me because he's been consistent, and as Dayton alluded, when he had the opportunity to captain the team, he got the guys to rally together and pull out some of their best performances and come out victorious in those games. For the 50 over, I would say Jason, because to me, there's no person better at this point currently for 50 over to captain other than him. At the point where he was captaining, he had, as Dayton said, the test team, the T20 and the 50 over. So I think without having the stressors of the other 2 teams, he'd be able to put his focus solely on the 50 over format and more so enjoy his captaincy of the 50 over team at this point. That's it for me.
Thanks, Tiffany. Cammy, you're here. I know you're here, Cammy. If you can unmute now, maybe, and you can answer this question as well, and then our moderator might be able to go back and ask you the question that he had for you initially. So Cammy, if you can unmute, because you just need to unmute. You have, I know you're here, but I'm not sure if you're still having issues unmuting. I'm not see, yeah, Cammy is still muted, but he did type in to say in the chat, to say that in response to Mr. Holder's comment about fast bowlers, where have they gone? I think they're still around, but they're not encouraged. And this is Cammy's take on it. But like I said, I'm not sure what's happening, but he still has not unmuted. So Mr. Moderator, sorry, I will hand back over to you because I don't have any other questions or comments in the chat. So, but if there are any other questions, please type them in the chat, or Mr. Moderator, if you have other questions for the panelists, then go right ahead. If not, I think we will have the panelists then do their wrap up. They can each do a wrap up thereafter. Thanks.
Thanks, Gigi. Yes, there are a couple more questions here. I think I may have to go ahead and answer the question that I had slated for Cammy Wilson. And I will put it to one of the other panelists, or maybe two of them might want to.
Actually, sorry, moderator. I think Cammy has unmuted. He's now unmuted. Cammy,
Okay.
You're there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Cammy is now available to answer his question. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much for finally being able to join us. So the question for you is going to be this after a very brief lead-in. So the former Australian captain, Ian Chappell, now turned commentator, stated that he always cheers for the West Indies to be successful because when the West Indies are winning, the whole game of cricket globally is a much better game. The West Indies brings an excitement and passion to the game, unlike no other team. There's such brilliance and skills that forces all other teams to raise the levels of their performance if they want to be competitive with the West Indies. So my question for you, sir, are West Indian players who play 20 over cricket for the franchise leagues never seem to perform as well consistently when they transition into the West Indies team? Their performance is usually average to weak, resulting in West Indies not being very competitive. Any ideas as to why this inconsistency in performance?
Yes, I would think that it's a lack of discipline. I think the ability is there, but the great Sir Gary Sobers once told me that cricket is a head game, and I believe that wholeheartedly. So I think that it's a matter of discipline, getting these guys the right mindset. And once that is in place, I think the rest is icing on the cake. Yes?
Yes, thank you very much indeed for that response.
Mr. Moderator, do you mind if I weigh in a little bit on that
Sure,
question?
please do, please do. Absolutely. That would be fantastic.
I really am glad you posed that question because there's an important point that people seem not to recognize. The T20 leagues around the world are domestic leagues. They are not international cricket. International cricket is a higher level of cricket. And we get this idea that people are doing so well in these leagues, so they must be great. But they are really tested when they reach international cricket because at international level, you get the very best there is coming up against you. That's number one. Number two, the pressures at international level are greater. And so that tests your mettle in ways beyond your technical competence. It's about your courage and your focus and your discipline and those kinds of things. So I'm very amused when people keep saying, oh, they do well in these leagues. It's like saying they do well in the West Indies regional championship, but they don't do well at test level. They're two different levels of cricket. And while the IPL, for instance, is promoted very highly, and it is a very good standard of cricket, it is still not the same as international cricket. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, when you leave these leagues and you parachute into a West Indies team, you turn up here a week before the series you're going to play in. You know how to gel with the team you're playing with. You know how to build relationships with these people, etc., and go there and perform as a team. That is always more difficult. And usually, just before you play these series, you have all kinds of controversy. Half the people are saying you shouldn't be playing and somebody else should be playing. And those put pressures on players that are not necessarily there in a domestic league. So I think we have to be very careful for those comparisons. And really and truly, the only way to tell if you are a top international cricketer is to play at that level and perform at that level. That's when I'm convinced that you're truly a top international cricketer, not by playing in a domestic league.
May I join Dayton on this one?
Absolutely, please go for it.
No, and I agree with what Dayton just said, especially his latter point, because if there's one thing I've always believed, that chemistry in a team sport is vital. Chemistry is absolutely vital. You know, and it's not simply a matter I can bat well, so you don't have to worry about you. I can bowl well, so you don't have to worry about you. I can catch well, but you have to worry, because when you are in a team environment, how other people are operating around you, how they're interacting with you, how are they appreciating you, what they're saying to you, all of those things combine to impact you in a very positive way. That builds your confidence, and that strengthens you as a player. And I think Dayton is very right. It is unfortunate that most of these guys that come back from these leagues come back only the week or two before. You'll have that time to build a chemistry. You may say, well, they know each other from years ago, but people have changed, people have developed, people are thinking differently, and the influences on them are different, and the criticisms, like they just identified as well, the criticisms will impact you. It is one thing to say, I have earned my place in this team, and everybody agrees with me. It's another to say, I've earned this, my place in this team, but half the people disagree with you and make a point on someone else who should have been there ahead of you. That must have an impact on you. So I am saying to you, domestic cricket, like again, is one thing. International cricket is another, a different standard. I'm even compared to football, because when people, I don't want to start an argument about football. When people tell me about Messi and Ronaldo and these guys, so they perform well in their domestic leagues, but Pelé won national championship, international championship, and that's what we believe in. So that's my take.
Very much for that insightful response. So seeing that you've just mentioned domestic cricket, I'm going to just pivot there for a moment. I'm going to start the question to Mr. Cammy Wilson, and the other panelists are free to weigh in if they also have a perspective to give. So the 2022 Barbados domestic cricket season started on Saturday. You will recall that the 2021 domestic cricket season was cancelled last August because of health and safety concerns connected to the COVID pandemic. So the question is this: is our domestic cricket meeting the demands of preparing our players for regional and international cricket at the highest level?
No.
That is it, Cammy?
Yes, no, they're not. Why? Blatantly no.
Why?
I don't know why, but if you see the conditions of certain venues, grounds, and the lackadaisical attitude that some players bring to the game, I would have to say again, no.
So we are, so does the administration, though, maybe we place a lot of blame on the players and their habits. How can the administration impact to make things that much better?
Well, sometimes the administration hands are tied. There are guys who think that they're bigger than the game, and they think that without them there's no game. You can't discipline them. You can't tell them anything. So sometimes the administrator's hands are tied.
Maybe administrator knows
Yeah.
how to do it too.
And I would add this. There are a lot of people who would tell you this flat. If so-and-so is not playing, I'm not going to the game. I don't want to see the rest.
But,
But yeah.
Here again,
Wayne,
I would like to join because the question Wayne asked and the response Cammy gave, I think they're important. Like I said, I watched cricket over this past week, Saturday at one venue and Sunday at another. I can tell anybody, I saw such a heightened display of indiscipline. I mean, players and the nobody seemed to say anything to them. Who's not smoking is drinking. They have to go and bath and then they're cursing. I just sat down and I said to myself, when I managed teams, could anybody have done that around me? I mean, I even saw a youngster. Well, he's not a youngster. No, he played when I was managing. He walked from the pavilion over to his vehicle barefooted. That made no sense to me. You're not even taking care of your own body. And the final point I want to make on that, unfortunately, quite unfortunately, I will say administrators started with coaches and going right at the top. Want to be people's friends. They want to be their friends. They're saying, well, let them get away with this or that because you're my friend or I want to be friendly with you. That's not what you should be doing. My friend Dayton Smith made a statement to me some weeks ago. It keeps ringing in my ears. He does not know how much it impacted how he was thinking. His exact statement was, too many people are now trying to get in cricket administration for something completely different from cricketing reasons. It's not cricketing reasons anymore. You know, and when I look back at the days when I first joined the BCA board, and I sat on the board with people like Charles Griffith and Seymour Nurse and Keith Walcott and Peter Short and Randall Hutchinson. Those guys had cricket. Owen Eswick. Those guys had cricket as their main focus, and they came to Kensington only about cricket. And we can say if you like their approaches, if you like them personally, it's irrelevant. At least when they got in that room, it was all about cricket. And I don't think we're seeing a lot of that these days.
if I could jump in on this question, Wayne asked the question, if there's anything the administration can do about it. I think one of the errors we're making in West Indies cricket is this. Let me go to the West Indies level first, and then I'll come back to Barbados level. Everything that happens in West Indies cricket, we say, what can the West Indies Cricket Board do? And when we are looking at the West Indies Cricket Board, some of the territories are failing us terribly in terms of their responsibility to produce good cricketers, to produce good cricket, to produce people with the right attitude towards the game, etc. The same thing happens at the domestic level within Barbados. While we may look at the BCA and say, what can they do? We all have to ask ourselves, what are the clubs doing? And I challenge anybody to have a different experience from me. I know all of us came along in club cricket in Barbados, and there were some clubs in Barbados that were very difficult to get into, not just because of the ability of the players that were in there, but because of the standards of the club. They vetted you very carefully in terms of your standards of discipline and behavior and your approach to training and things of that nature before they would accept you in the club. Things like commitment to the club, paying your club fees, all those things were important. Nowadays, in my view, the club structure is deteriorating badly in Barbados. And that has an impact on the cricket way beyond whatever the administration can do. So let me give you an example. There was a team in Barbados, I'm not going to call their name. They won the championship several years back. And in that entire season, I think they passed 200 runs in the innings twice in the whole season. They had 4 spinners. They prepared wickets that were low and slow from the very first ball of the day. And all the games were very low scoring. And that tells you the impact a club can have on the game at domestic level. We have a lot of young players coming into clubs. All the administrators complain to me that a lot of youngsters come to the club and they don't want to pay club fees. So the clubs struggle to maintain their product because they don't have funds. So there's a lot that needs to be done at the club level to improve the standard of cricket and the standard of cricketer they produce. A lot of the tracks they produce on Saturdays are not good enough to really produce good cricket. A lot of the behavior, as Jeff said, isn't going to produce the kind of cricketers you want to play at a higher level. There's a clear lack of discipline in some of the players that doesn't seem to be addressed at the club level. So my general point I'm making is, if we want to improve cricket from the grassroots level, we have to ask ourselves, how do we get the clubs to function better and to produce the kind of players that we're looking for to go to a higher level?
Dayton, you have, Mr. Chair, Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Please do, absolutely, please do.
Right, Dayton, we as persons on the ground know of the crisis that prevails at the club level.
Yep.
You and I know of a team that plays in the elite competition right now. Very prominent club in Barbados that basically operates as a cricket team that comes together and play cricket during the cricket season. There's no club structure whatsoever to it. And that is very pervasive across the board in Barbados. What I am beginning to think, though, Dr. Haynes spoke about the territorial boards taking responsibility in an earlier submission. And I'm thinking along the lines that here in Barbados again, that there is a need for another tier of competition, let's put it that way, in the island. And it has to be bordering, heading towards a semi-professional setup, whereby to answer that question that was earlier asked, if the current setup is satisfying the need, I say no. As it is right now, I say no also, as Cammy said, I do agree with him. But what I'm suggesting is that there is a need now for another tier of competition in Barbados, where the Barbados Cricket Association takes responsibility. And it's nothing new. We're not reinventing the wheel. You remember they had something here in Barbados called the Arawak Cup, the Arawak Cement Cup. Well, I'm speaking along those lines. Such a competition where you now choose, you put together the best cricketers on the island, and you put them into a competitive situation. This is not no Barbados trials that you just play for the to make up numbers because the Barbados team has already been selected and all that. I'm talking about all formats, white ball and red ball, where a minimum of 4, and I was going to suggest 6 groups are put together, and of the best cricketers in the island playing on a semi-professional basis, and thereby bringing a new sphere of competition to local cricket. Because as it is right now, we know that what is happening on Saturdays is not going to be, out of that, we're not going to produce world-class cricketers out of that. And I mean, the record is there to show. Who is the last world-class cricketer that Barbados has produced coming out of our system? That's not a question for anybody to ask. That is just being thrown. The answer, that's just being thrown.
Thank you so much. There's been some very interesting points being made as part of this this question. So what I'm hearing is that it seems as if that ugly, sinister entity of discipline is once again becoming a significant problem in organization, structure, and at the individual level. So it seems as if some sort of concerted effort needs to be made to create some significant systems that hopefully can work. We know that people don't always work, but we know that systems do, because people can plug into systems and it doesn't depend on the individual to make it function. So are there any possibilities of creating some kind of systems that can help solve this sort of problem that we're seeing very clearly could become very detrimental to the development of cricket in Barbados.
Mr. Moderator, and I was on the BCA board. I think Dayton was on board as well when we developed the Everton Week Centre of Excellence. That's a perfect system. That's a perfect structure. But all I see happening at Everton Week Centre of Excellence now is cricket practice. That should be a centre to build a cricketer, a diverse program, which with a high insistence on discipline. Yes, you want technical efficiency and all these things as well. But I do not know if we have taken the Everton Week Centre of Excellence to the position where the word excellence should be used. Because I honestly believe that is a place where all the things that we're talking about, it's a virtual school, it's an academy. And we can do so much of that if we just have a little vision and take a little time and involve people who have cricket reasons as their MO for being involved in cricket.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brooms. Are any of the other panelists want to weigh in on this?
And if I were to say anything concerning the cricket, the Everton Weeks Centre of Excellence, I think that is a brilliant idea. You
don't use the sir reference to things. Only the people.
I know, but I remember running in for trouble for leaving off that sir before, so I'm going to err on the side of caution. But yes, what I would like to see happen with the Everton Week Centre of Excellence, though, is rather than it becomes this exclusive program where everything is concentrated in this one at Kensington Oval, I would want to see an expansion of that program with satellite locations across the island. I mean, the Centre of Excellence is based at Kensington, and the activities there go on mainly in the evenings. It's for young people of school age, and a lot of the activities there occur in the after-school hours. Your beloved St. Lucie, Dayton Griffith, or remind me, Jeff, the name of your school is
Alexandra.
No, I meant St. Lucie Secondary, but it's no.
Right. It's no Darrell Jordan.
Darrell Jordan. That's the name I'm looking for. What I'm saying, a youngster from Darrell Jordan that finishes school at 3 o'clock to get to Kensington Oval for practice, if he's going to leave school at 3 o'clock. And then, of course, if he lives in St. Lucie, he has to get back home afterwards. How much help is the Everton Week Centre of Excellence to him? When maybe we can look at the possibility of having a satellite of the Everton Week Centre catering to students from the north of the island, likewise the south, the east, wherever. So what I would like to suggest is that the program at the centre be expanded and stop being so exclusive. I find that in Barbados cricket, we have this tendency not to be inclusive. We head straight to the exclusive so that only a limited number of people benefit from most of our programs.
If I may, I would expand in a slightly different direction on that.
Sure, please do.
I am a football coach, by the way. I'm a certified CONCACAF football coach. And if I may use a footballing analogy, when you're preparing a football team, you have to prepare the team physically, tactically, technically, and mentally. A lot of the approach that I'm seeing to preparation of teams, youth teams in particular, is about technical preparation. So we get in the nets, we have very, very good, knowledgeable coaches, and we learn the technique of how to drive the ball, how to pull, how to bowl a line and length. But that's only one aspect of preparation. What we need to do in these programs is to move beyond that. If you are going to be a center of excellence, you have to prepare a person to perform, not just to have the technical ability to play a cover drive. Playing a cover drive is not building an innings. You have to do that in two ways. And the way you do that in football coaching is that you do the technical coaching. And then you do what they call small-sided games. So you use what you just learned technically. And then you use full-size games to translate it into a team a team situation. I would like to see in our coaching programs generally, and certainly in our Center of Excellence, these youngsters playing a lot more cricket, putting what they learn technically into operation in an actual game scenario, even if it's not a full game, but a game scenario, where a lot more of that happens. And then when you have to go into actually representing your country, you're better prepared for that. Rather, batting in the nets, Wayne knows this, and we've all played cricket, batting in the nets is a completely different experience from being out in the middle with 11 people trying to stop you from scoring. And so I think we have to move more in that direction of preparing for match situations rather than just technical preparation.
Mr. Moderator, if I may wait in here a minute, just a second. Tiffany, I want to ask a question. Sorry, Tiffany. As a person who I know you are saying that you're training now and looking towards maybe coaching at some point in time, what are your thoughts with respect to the statements that are being made here in terms of, like Dayton was just talking about, there's only one, that's only one aspect of the game, training and so forth, and the technical skills, that's just one aspect of the game, but the holistic preparation of people, of the cricketers. What are your thoughts with respect to this and what's happening in Barbados and maybe to women's cricket, or if you want to speak in general, or maybe specific to women's cricket?
Based on my experience of coming through the Center of Excellence myself, as Wayne and Dayton both said, it spends a lot more time on skills. And for me personally, I believe that in any sport, it is 60% mental, 40% physical. So we as a society don't tend to value the mental aspect and the mental toughness of when it comes to sport. And you could be as tired as you are playing cricket, standing up in the field, say 35 over the 50 overs. If you have mental toughness, you can see yourself out for the remainder of the game. And I think we need to spend a lot more time preparing the players mentally, like as Dayton said, giving them situational situations to see what they would do. Let the players themselves go through the situation, and then you as a coach, after that situation, well, you sit down, you give them feedback, and then you give them another situation similar to that previous situation and see if they made the adjustments, because it engages them cognitively. And I think that cognitive part is lacking seriously in the Center of Excellence at this point. We spend a lot more time fine-tuning the skills. Like, skills for me, you can work on that anytime. You can work on that on your own. You can work on that with a coach, but sometimes you need that guidance from a coach, from a players, just to get through situations. And I think the mental aspect needs to be introduced, including public speaking as well, because that is another part of the game that is also important when it comes to cricket and interviews.
If I could add just a little bit more to that, if you don't mind.
Please do.
We were talking about the greats of the past. Think about this. None of them had a Center of Excellence. But here's what they had. The experts tell you that if you want to be a competent professional in any sport, you need 10,000 hours of focused training. So if you take Sir Everton Weeks, who grew up in the Pickwick area close to Kensington, he didn't have a Center of Excellence, but what he had was this. He would watch cricket at Kensington, see them play. He would play probably at school. He would play almost every day in your neighborhood. And if you showed talent, at a very young age, people allowed you to play on a representative team for your district. And you might find yourself on a Saturday representing your district with people older than you. You are now in a competitive situation where you had the pressures of competition, where you come up against bowlers who had different skills than you might not have faced before. And then you go back to your village and someone says to you, youngster, you are hitting across the ball. That's coaching. And then what happens is tomorrow, you're going to play cricket in your neighborhood and you're going to put that skill into practice. And then Saturday, you're going to represent your team. And then Sunday, you may represent another team. The point I'm making is everything you learn one day, very quickly afterwards, you find yourself playing in competitive situations. No matter what level is that, it might be at a low level, it might be a high level. But the point is you get the opportunity to start translating those skills into an actual game scenario where you have to solve problems out on the field. And then someone could give you feedback later. And Jeff and Wayne will know this. I certainly learned a hell of a lot of cricket, not from coaching. I was never formally coached, but people who knew the game, older people, including my older brother, would offer you little tidbits of advice. They'd say, you know, when the ball is swinging, don't hit across the ball, keep your bat face straight. And then you had to go there and apply that in a practical situation, playing against, very often in my case, people who were older than me. When I was 14 years old, I was playing intermediate cricket facing Joe Garner. And my point is you had the opportunities to apply these skills. Right now, we spend a lot more time in formal coaching situations, just going through skills rather than applying those skills in competitive situations. I think we have to address that.
If I may ask Tiffany a question, Mr. Moderator.
Sure, please do.
Tiffany, based on what Wayne Holder said, like on what you said earlier, you know, you were very much involved in cricket when you were at school, and then you moved away, as the moderator identified, to go into your studies. How much of a challenge was it for you that may have even forced your hand to give up the cricket, for you to leave your school? I think, if I may be correct, you were at Foundation, was it?
Yeah, but I never played cricket I played cricket in primary school. I didn't have cricket in secondary school.
No, I know that. I know that part. I mean, to move from school on evenings to go to wherever you guys are practicing with Richard and Brother Campbell, and then to go back home to study. How much pressure that put on you?
Well, at Foundation, it was pretty easy, but it became a task when I did sixth form at Lodge, because I'd have to leave St. John, try to get to practice for 4:30. Then practice would finish like sometimes 6:30, 7 o'clock to go try to catch the bus to come home. By the time I get home, it'd be like 9 o'clock and I still had to do school assignments and what's not. So it was kind of tiring, but I got through it.
Well, you got through it, and I'm glad you got through it, because it gave me an opportunity to work on the same staff as you when you came to the teacher Alexander School, and I was a principal.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Moderator.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So CGF, you have no more questions. I have no more questions.
Actually, there are a couple more. I see Wayne wants to say something, but Wayne, there are a couple questions here for you. Carlos is asking you, do you think that the BCA leadership has lost its way with regards to the development of cricket? And then Wayne, he's also saying, Wayne, I remember Sir Gary saying the softball cricket was instrumental in his development. He suggested that young players should start there. We grew up playing hand after hand, which though taught batters to value their hand and give the players of yesteryears or got them started that way, and without coaches other than our senior guys in our various villages. And how could these points help the players of today? And I guess Dayton had made mention of some of these things, the older persons just guiding you and helping. So how can these points help the players of today?
Very much so. I think that, again, Dayton would have touched on a few of the questions that Carlos asked in that last submission. But before I get down there, I mean, the conversation, the general trend of the conversation leads into a question that David asked earlier. And when he asked if players are training as hard as previous players, you know, I believe that you play what you practice. What is the training routine of the typical Barbados and West Indies player like? What I can tell you, because of my intimate involvement and knowledge, these players today train very, very hard physically. a lot more physical training, non-cricket physical training goes on. The average Barbados player has a personal trainer, has a relationship with a gym. These guys do a lot of work. I mean, you can look at some of the bodies and you can see that sometimes you wonder if they're bodybuilders and not cricketers. But a lot of work goes in. What Deighton explained earlier, and what Carlos is talking about here also is that they play a lot less cricket. They don't play the amount of cricket as the players of the past. And first of all, there's that muscle memory. There's that ability to concentrate for long periods of time. I mean, let's talk about hand after hand in the road where a guy got to treasure his knock. The idea of hand after hand in the road is not to score runs. It is to bat as long as you possibly can. And those were training grounds for the older players. Today, that is not going to happen anymore. There's nothing called road cricket again. There's very much impromptu cricket being played in Barbados at the moment. Everything is organized, and some of the environments are always very sterile. I can give you one example and finish here. I have a little great nephew who was at primary school, and I used to pick him up on evenings. And one evening I was late. When I got there, I found him in the yard, and I asked him, I said, so y'all don't do anything on your, or like play a game of cricket or anything while you were waiting for me? You know what he told me? We can't play cricket on the school unless there's a teacher to supervise us, unless there's a senior person there. Now, that is a completely different situation than what I would have been there. I know the school closed down. All the teachers have left, all the ancillary staff has left, and the only persons on the compound is me and my friends playing cricket. But that is a different environment in which we operate today. So those are the kind of general situations that we probably need to adapt to adapt to, and we got to find ways around them.
Yes, Rawle, I don't have any other questions. I think Wayne would have made mention of the last question, which was from David when he asked about, yeah, that last question you asked about are the players training as hard as
training? Yeah, about players training.
Yeah, that was the last question from David with respect to the training. If there's anybody else that wants to touch on that, other than that, I think we can wrap up with everybody giving their final comments.
I would like to touch on it as well.
Go ahead.
Because I must agree with it and add a little something to it. They are doing a lot of training, and we cannot look that. And most of these schools, at least the school that where I was principal, Alexander, we have our own gym, and all. They did a lot of work. But you know what? One of the things that when I was at school, and I'm sure when Dayton was at school, and I think when Wayne was at school, that we had, we no longer have set cricket. That's the kind of cricket that we really look forward to. And then this kind of cricket that pretty much made us get into school thing. Set cricket is no longer being played at schools in Barbados. I don't know how that is possible. It cuts back on one of cricket. We need that kind of cricket. Like Wayne said, there's no impromptu. Wayne could tell you when we were living in the same area, we had a very clear position every evening. We'd be on the pasture, hear the pasture. We love to see so many brown spots. When we leave his school, we were at the same school that Tiffany went in from at Lodge, and we would come down, and he would say, all of us, we have pitch prepared, and we play cricket every single day of the week. Every single day of the week. We even, if we remember this, we even have a competition every Independence Day. There's a big fair over the National Conservation Commission, NCC. And we would play a cricket match on our pasture against the Barbados women's team. I think that's what got me involved in playing women's cricket. But our friendship be like Pat Riddick and those guys and those girls. So we would play here. And then we always go to the fair, but at least we got in our cricket first. We didn't stay home watching television, doing video games and stuff. We played cricket, and that you become a good cricketer by playing cricket.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to weigh in on that? Cammy, Dayton, Tiffany, anybody else wants to weigh in on that with respect to what's the training routine of the typical Barbados and West Indies player like? And do they Well, yeah, are the players training as hard today as previous years? That was the question. What is the training routine of a typical Barbados player like?
I think in the past it was simpler times, but as time has passed, we have a set in both men and women who have contracts and they're able to focus more on their cricket. And then there's a large group that still has to take care of their family, still have to work their jobs. Because some people, especially in the economic climate, work more than one job to make ends meet. And fatigue sometimes too, just life happening makes it difficult for people to get in the amount of cricket that they would personally like to get in. But that's just my take on it as well.
Thanks, Tiffany. Dayton or Cammy, y'all want to weigh in on that? Or no? If not, moderator, I hand it back over to you to do the wrap up for each person to give their wrap up. Everybody can have an opportunity to wrap up on that. Cammy, you're unmuted now. Are you weighing in on that or you're wrapping up?
Yes, I agree that it's a new day. Our cricket is played much different than when I played it. They practice, they coach, but they play less cricket. And like Jeff said, the only way you're going to get good at cricket is to play cricket. You can watch all the videos you want until you go in the middle. You're never going to get the job done.
Thank you very much indeed. So Wayne, would you like to give your wrap up, please?
Yes, definitely. Well, I still believe in West Indies cricket. And I also believe that there is a bright and a great future for cricket in the Caribbean. It is just for us, and especially those in administration, those in leadership, to come to terms with the fact that things have to happen differently. Dr. Haynes again mentioned it. There's a market out there for cricketers without ever having a looking at the West Indies team. You know, cricket has transformed to the point that you don't necessarily have to play for Barbados or the West Indies, you know, to be successful financially and to bring your skills up to the highest level. I am also excited for the prospects of women's cricket, Tiffany, because cricket among women is expanding exponentially throughout the world. And I just hope that Barbados and West Indies will be able to tap in, you know, and exploit the possibilities, which would have to begin with more involvement of women, getting cricket back, well, not back, getting cricket into the female sector of our society. And finally, cricket here in this island has lost contact with its communities. Carlos asked the question, if the leadership has lost its way with regards to the development of cricket. I'm going to finish here with this one. I think that the BCA in its present form has become irrelevant towards cricket going any further than it is at this point in time. Maybe the next time we have a discussion like this, I will expand on that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Holder. It's been a pleasure having you. On to Mr. Brooms for final wrap up, please.
As you can appreciate, I've been very focused on the journey of West Indies cricket, both male and female. I think the West Indies female journey has been quite arduous, but I think they're coming to a point now where they're finally getting the support. They've gone through a whole plethora of negativities, no finance, no media support, no nothing. But I think things are improving for them, and I am looking forward to seeing great things in relation to the West Indies women. In terms of the men, as I think my book very clearly paints the picture. We go back from the early the pre-West Indies Cricket Board days and through the early days and the post-World War days, the liberation era, the era of dominance of the Clive Lloyds, you know, obviously the liberation days of Frank Worrell and Gary Sobers and whatever. But then we also came into what I referred to in the book as a recurring hurricane. We have got to stop all of these conflicts. Every time you turn around, it's the board versus the players versus the board, the coach versus the board, and the board versus the board themselves. But until we can stop that and just focus on what is good about cricket, and we are going to struggle. But I honestly have faith because I've seen some good signs. Like I said, I am a big supporter of the Big Center of Excellence if it's used properly. I've seen some signs where we're trying to get some of our young players exposed in England. Only two boys from Wayne's favorite Ipswich club went up to England only last week, and I know the West Indies Cricket Board making similar thrusts, and I just hope that these bear fruit. But I am a firm believer in West Indies cricket. I'm a firm believer in Barbados cricket. And I honestly believe that we may not have the glory days that we had before, but we have good days ahead of us. And I'm looking forward to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brooms, for your very insightful participation. On to you, Tiffany, for your wrap-up, please.
Just to elaborate on what Vin said about women's cricket, yes, it's expanding across the world, and I personally think that the Cricket West Indies dropped the ball when the women won the World Cup and did not push women female cricket in the region. I thought that that was the prime opportunity to market female cricket throughout the region and get girls to come in and make the game marketable here, but it didn't happen. But as Jeff said, we are now seeing that there's investment. We're seeing people paying attention to the women. The women have been fighting a very long, hard battle, and I'm glad that they're now getting the recognition for their successes. In terms of locally back in Barbados, I would love to see the same level that is put into the same level of effort that's put into grassroots cricket in the men's and boys side of the game be put into the female and women's side of the game. Like build a grassroots program in Barbados for the women the same way we have for the men, and hopefully that will be able to build a feeder system for the women up to the senior level, because I know that there are a number of females on the team that are the same age as I am, are older, and when we decide to cross that line, what happens to women cricket in Barbados? And I just want that development and energy that they have for the men to be translated into the women's game.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, for your participation, and best of luck to you in your studies here in Alberta. On to you now, Mr. Smith, for your final closing words.
Thank you. Here's what I would say. If you look at the glory days of West Indies cricket, and there were some things that came through. One is that there was a unity of purpose. That was the time when a lot of people across the diaspora, not only in the Caribbean, but across the diaspora, were looking at things like emancipation, at independence, and proving that we were good enough to be independent countries, etc. And teams had something to rally around. There was unity of purpose. During the period when we were at our lowest, when we have done really poorly in cricket, was the period when there was great discord in our cricket, as Jeff pointed out, where there was huge embarrassments with fights all over the globe between the board and players, etc. The good news is that recently we seem not to be having those huge fights and embarrassing displays and walking out on tours and things like that. I think that is a good sign for the future of cricket, where people are now focusing on things other than fighting with each other. And what they need next, and I think I see some coming, is once you have some unity of purpose, you have to have heroes in your game. If you look at the great periods of West Indies cricket, you had Sir Frank Worrell, Sir Garfield, Sir Clive, Sir Viv, Then you had a battery of fast bowlers that were every young player in the Caribbean wanted to be like them. And I think that we now have to get back to finding some of those heroes in our game, to go there and have people want to be like them. In our women's game, we have some heroes already, and we should be marketing them so that young girls will say, I want to do that. I think Haley Matthews is a young world-class player. Deandra Dottin, Stephanie Taylor. We ought to be marketing them across the region to say to young players, here's a future for you, here's a career that you can take up. And people, I think, would go for that. And the only way that any sport survives, in those glory days of West Indies cricket, everywhere you turn, people were playing cricket. And that's what we have to do. We have to get more young people playing cricket. We have to get more young girls playing cricket, because right now we have some very good cricketers, but I don't see the next level coming, and we have to make sure we get those. And the only way to do that is to go into the schools and get more girls playing cricket. I think if we do those things, get more people playing at the grassroots level, get well, we've already, I think, achieved the idea of a little more unity among our players and our administrators, and start focusing on the people in our game who are doing well. Here recently, Craig Brathwaite performed a Herculean feat in batting for about half of a test match by himself. Those kind of things are the type of things we should be, bringing to the attention of our youngsters and saying, look, we have people out here doing Herculean things for the sake of all of these islands. Let's follow them. So I think those are the things we need to focus on, and we're going to be all right.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your very insightful participation. Well, I have just received a signal from the dressing room that it's time to end play for the day. So as the umpire, I'm picking the bails and pulling the stumps. It was an absorbing day of cricket, but with regrets, that is close of play for the day. So
Mr. Moderator, in modern day
Cammy.
cricket, after the game is finished, you have interviews. My interview comment is, let everybody know that the book of it is available on Amazon.
Oh,
The
no,
book
you're
is
going to get an
available on Amazon.
opportunity. You're going to get an opportunity to say that, Jeff. But Mr. Moderator, we forgot Cammy. Cammy needs to wrap up as well.
Well, I thought Cammy was the first person who did the wrap up.
No, Cammy needs to wrap up because I haven't really heard Cammy. Cammy, did you do your wrap up, Cammy? He's still muted, so I'm not sure. But no, I didn't really hear Cammy wrap up.
On mute, okay.
I did my wrap up.
You did your wrap
But-
up?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
But I can't add anything else. So much has been said.
okay.
But I think that these guys are playing too few games. I think they're spending too much time watching videos, training, getting their bodies right. I mean, that's important. But a boxer can shadow box all he wants. And until he gets in the ring, nothing matters. Until you get between those 6 stumps rather, and start playing some cricket, nothing else matters.
Could I say something? This is his wife. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
They're talking about coaching and all of that. I've been around cricket long enough that when you go to that pitch, you play your game. No coach can teach you nothing. You play your game. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Moderator, you could go right ahead. I think we'll have Consul Gibbs will come in after you just to give a quick vote of thanks. And yeah, so finish up, wrap up, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, so thanks to the panel and all the spectators who participated. It was a great honor to be part of this discussion, and hope everybody goes out and purchases that book that Mr.
You
Jeff
got it already.
Thank you so much indeed. So over to you now, Mr. Gibbs, for a few final words. Thank you.
But thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. It has been a very absorbing night of cricket discussion. We could go on for hours on end, but we've heard so much, we've gotten so much food for thought We have heard the need for more grassroots community cricket. Being told us about the need for a semi-professional league. We've heard the need for indoor facilities so players can train and practice for extended periods of time. We've heard the need for more discipline in our club system. And we've heard the need for better pitches to encourage fast bowlers. And we've also heard the need to focus more on female cricket. I want to thank all of the panelists who, I must tell you that this whole event came when I read Jeff's book in the Sunday Sun. And I want him to know I purchased a copy on Amazon. It was delivered to me here in Toronto, Canada within a few days. So I've read it from cover to cover. I have not yet answered all the questions that you posed in the back of the book. Some of them have me a little stumped, but I am getting there. I want also, Jeff, I want to congratulate you for chronicling the journey of West Indies cricket and adding to our growing body of cricketing literature. Well, I thank Wayne, my colleague at Ministry of Foreign Affairs, always provocative. I will call you tomorrow and take you on some things you raised about the last part you ended with about the cricket board and their relevance and so on. Very, very provocative statements. I also want to thank all the other panelists, Dayton and Dr. Desmond is gone. Haynes had to leave early, but I want to thank him in his absence. I want to thank all the other panelists who contributed with their very interesting views. We had, of course, Cammy and Tiffany, of course. Tiffany, I want to wish you all the best in your studies at your scholarship here there in Alberta. And I'm very proud of you and the fact your willingness to embark on that journey. Because coming to Canada to study and play cricket is not necessarily the easiest thing given the climate and so on. But you decided to embark on that journey and with taken courage and determination. So all in all, I want to say it's my real pleasure, and I want to thank, of course, our audience who stayed with us, who posed their questions, and I see a number of persons here who posed their questions to the panelists and participated in the discussion. So I want to thank you. Of course, the questions will continue and the discussions will go on, and there will be perhaps more questions than answers. But all in all, it was a pleasure of mine, and it's now my pleasure to pass it back over to our Consul General. Just to say before you go, though, that Jeff, we expect at some point in time you'll be passing through Toronto to do a little bit about signing thing for us. And
that's on the cards. That's on the cards.
That's right. We look at that. And Tiffany, at some point in time, after your scholarship, you have to come to Toronto. You can't stay in Alberta, and we will be happy to host you at the consulate at the conclusion or so at some convenient point in your studies.
David,
thank you so very much.
David, you make Toronto, but indeed, on the 20th of May, I will be doing a book signing at the Consul General's office in New York City.
I understand that. Yes. So once again, congratulations. So I see our Honorary Consul, Marilyn, too. She was, I don't know if she posed any questions, but she was with us all night. So Marilyn, thank you very much for your kind participation. Consul General, I hand over to you.
Thank you so very much, everybody. Thank you to Honorary Consul Rawle Carter as well, Moderator. Yes, Marilyn Mosley, our other Honorary Consul, was with us as well. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everybody. And I know you've been on and wanting to discuss and so on. And this is what I am going to do for you now. If there is anybody who wants to stay on for a few more minutes and discuss anything, I will stop the recording. So there's no longer